Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore, and time for another whiskey tasting. And today we are headed to Scotland, a place I have been studying a lot here lately, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. Going to be doing a tasting of a whiskey from Doors Distillery by way of Glenturret Distillery. Now, Doors Distillery is one you may not have heard of before. It is one of the new breed of craft distilleries. And I know I told you guys that sooner or later we'd be doing a craft distillery bracketology. I am doing that right now. I'm getting the play-in rounds done over on Instagram. And in about 3 weeks, I'll be bringing you the top 256 and we'll do bracketology and get down to the best craft distilleries. And 8 Door actually today made it through to that round of 256 with an outstanding number of votes from people. So people who know about this whiskey or know about this distillery have interest in it, enough so to vote for it over Balblair, which was one of the ones that it went over. And then I'm forgetting off the top of my head what the other distillery was. Oh, Scapa, knocked down Scapa as well, which is take a trip across into Orkney, not too far away from where 8 Door is in John O'Groats. Now, I've been to the 8 Doors distillery, and I will tell you that I actually had one of the owners, Kerry Campbell, walk me around and tell me kind of what their philosophy is. Of course, you can start out either sourcing whiskey, or you can come up with something like Lindor's Abbey, decide to make aquavitae because it kind of fit with their story, or some that make gin or vodka, that sort of thing, or some just wait. And in the case of 8 Doors, they decided that they were working with a guy named John Ramsay, who had worked for Glenrothes and some other distilleries in Scotland, 40-year career, and he decided to help them set up their equipment and get them running, kind of the same way that Jim McEwen did for Ardnahoe. Great to have a legend come in because it's going to get you off. It's a lot of money to invest in building a distillery, and not a lot of new distilleries in Scotland. So this is kind of them branching out and doing their own thing. And so if you're going to do that and invest the money, get somebody who knows what they're doing to get you started. And so that's what they have done. Now, John Ramsay, the guy who is helping them, also helped pick out this whiskey that I'm doing a tasting on today, which is the Seven Sons whiskey. And Seven Sons is a special series of whiskeys that they are sourcing from other distilleries, maybe trying to give a little bit of an idea of the profile that they may be reaching for. And this one is a single malt whiskey. This is the third in their series, and they gave me a little sample while I was there, and it's taken me a long time actually to get to it. And after I tasted it, I started wondering why it took me so long to get to it. And then it got me to a point where I said, wait, how can I get another bottle of this? This runs about 52 pounds a bottle, not available in the U.S. as far as I know, and so kind of tough to get. So savoring it from my end, but if you're overseas, it might be something you want to take a look in your stores and see if you can find. This is now Glenturret, for those of you who are not familiar with the geography of Scotland, is not in the Highlands. It's in the Highlands as a technical area, but it is, so it's defined as a Highland distillery, but it's down close to the lowlands. And so it's right before you start making that drive up into Cairngorms National Park. And so this is not a place that's traditionally thought of as a peat area, but they are using peat to make this particular whiskey. And it's one of the things that, as I am working on a project, which I'm going to tell you about here in just a couple of moments, about Scotch whiskey, it's hard to define these territories the way that you used to, because you used to be able to say that different areas had different flavor personalities, like the lowlands were usually light and fruity whiskeys. Then you would get up into, or you go to Islay or any of the islands, and you can get more of that smoky, peated kind of experience. But over the years, there has been a real attempt by some of the lowland and highland distilleries to start integrating a lot more peat expressions, even up in Speyside. And then once you get out to the islands, you've got Bunnahabhain and other distilleries, Bruichladdich, who are making whiskeys that are unpeated. So it's no longer something where, you can really claim that an area has a personality. And so as those barriers start to drop, we have to kind of change our expectation. When you go to a distillery, if you're not a fan of peated whiskeys, then you might inquire about, what whiskeys they have that are unpeated, and vice versa, because you may walk into a Speyside distillery and find they have some really great peated whiskeys, Ben Romick. And so, it's something that you have to be more aware of these days. This whiskey is fascinating, and my compliments to John Ramsey, because he pulled out a whiskey that I think a Islay fan would be into for a certain amount. It is not necessarily medicinal, okay? But it seems to have a lot of the characteristics of a Bruichladdich Port Charlotte in terms of the amount of kind of barbecue smoke that's coming out of this whiskey. And while this is aged in European oak and sherry barrels, it's definitely got a lot of caramel on the nose, toffee just all over the place. And it even seems to have a little bit of a briny character. I don't know where that would be coming from. And maybe some citrus coming in, but a very, very well-developed nose on this. And this is a 9-year-old whiskey. It's actually called Rua Maor. I'm going to butcher that second one. I know the first half I'm pronouncing correctly, but I couldn't find a good pronunciation for the second word there. But this is a 9-year-old, non-chill filtered, no color added, and for what in the past they would have called a, earthy, man, that got grassy all of a sudden. Wow, interesting. Here we go. Cheers. A little bit more of the orange citrus coming through, tobacco notes, butterscotch. All of a sudden it's like butterscotch toffee. Maybe isn't necessarily in the mood as much for the umami and wants a little bit more sweetness to it. This actually pulls that sweetness in really nicely. So hats off to the people at Glenturret, and also hats off to John Ramsey, and also to the Campbells for picking this whiskey, because it is excellent. And the thing I was going to mention to you, and the reason I've been doing all this research into Scotch whiskey after doing my trip back last fall, is I'm working on my Scotch whiskey book, but I'm actually putting shorter profiles out on Whiskey Lore, the Whiskey Lore website. And if you go to distilleryplanner.com, it will actually redirect you to the distillery profiles area of the website. And so I have added in nearly 70 Scotch whiskey distilleries, along with the ones that I put in for Irish whiskey and the ones that I put in for Kentucky bourbon. So if you are thinking about going to Scotland and doing a trip, then go to distilleryplanner.com, and it'll take you to my Whiskey Lore distilleries pages, where I have detailed, and if you sign up for a membership, you can actually, it's a free membership, you can actually go in and add distilleries to your wish list. You can see what other people are wish listing. You can see what the most loved distilleries are. You can love distilleries yourself by just clicking a little button, and we're going to crowdsource and find out what distilleries people want to go to, what distilleries they enjoy. And that's part of what this bracketology that I'm doing over on Instagram right now and that I'm going to be bringing over here in a couple of weeks. That's part of the reason I'm doing this, is because I want to know what distilleries you guys are most interested in, and also find out what the best distilleries are crowdsourced from you. So check that out over on Instagram if you haven't been there to vote. It's on Instagram stories, and so it is the play-in round. There are 370 distilleries that I started with. I'm trying to get it down to this 256 bracket. It's going to take us a long time to get through all of those, but it's going to be a lot of fun to do that. So thank you so much for watching today, and I'm sorry it's been a while since I've been on here, but I've been really cranking away on trying to write these profiles and get this ready for May 1st, and of course it's May 2nd, so I didn't 100% meet my deadline, but I'm fairly close. But great whiskey, and if you find it and you're a smoke fan, you probably will enjoy it. Until next time, cheers and Slainte. I'll be disappointed that that's soon to be gone.